native culture, native knowledge. Hi, I'm Jeannie Green, bringing you award-winning Heartbeat Alaska.
Bringing you national and international Native news, this is award-winning Heartbeat Alaska, the premier Native voice in Native programming.
There's a heartbeat, louder than thunder, revolution is in the air. There's a heartbeat deep inside our mother. Are you too cool to care?
Now, with Heartbeat Alaska, here's Jeannie Green.
Hello, welcome to Heartbeat Alaska. Native news, Native information, and Native entertainment. I'm Jeannie Green. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a privilege to be invited into your home. Today we travel to the home of Athabascan elder Katie John, a leader in the fight for subsistence rights, a term that's been in the news quite a bit lately. What is subsistence and what does it mean? Well, Katie John tells us what it means to her.
Heartbeat Alaska is brought to you in part by the Division of Alcoholism and Drug Abuse and the Alaska Council on Prevention of Alcohol and Drug Abuse. Together, preventing substance abuse statewide. And by Ute Air Alaska, official airlines of Heartbeat Alaska. Ute Air Alaska, taking you home.
Katie John lives in the Copper River Basin. She's a product of another time, a time when our native people roamed freely around the Copper River Basin. They hunted and fished, gathered food. They were busy people, the Upper Ahtna, taking pride in their excellent fish camps, feeding families, surviving in the wilderness of their ancestors. Katie John now lives in Mentasta Lake, a log cabin settlement of about 80 people just off the highway between Tok and Glen Ellen, Alaska. The village sits 6 miles down a gravel road. A big billboard near the highway informs visitors that they're entering Indian country. She's the matriarch of the village, its leader, and she's related to virtually everyone in the village. Like a shrinking number of other Native elders around the state, she is the product of another time, a time before white people showed up in this area.
So, I've been living in here for, in house I live for, 37 I moved up here, first time I living in here.
Katie John speaks in the Upper Ahtna dialect. She's a 78-year-old great-grandmother, an unlikely person to be tagged as a political activist. But actually, that's what she is. Her case is famous. It started out simply enough. In 1964, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game shut down subsistence fishing at her traditional fish camp. The idea was to protect salmon stocks on the Copper River, one of North America's most productive and valuable sockeye fisheries. 20 years passed. Officials turned the villagers down when they petitioned to reopen their fishing ground. Katie John then sued. Within a few years, her case, Katie John versus the United States of America, evolved into the most important and complicated case in Alaska.
And when a low start and they cut it off the Slino River, no more fishing. And every river coming to headed to Copper River, they always stop the fishing, all the rivers coming into Copper River, and they just open right on the Copper River, that's all. And I have to go down all the way down to Ahtna. I got just so close to Cordova, fishing down that way. And I want to get land for fish camp down Ahtna. We had good place to fish in there. And they don't let me. If you want land, you go up the creek. I said, I got nothing to be up the creek. I want to have a fish camp. And they take over that place, a stage take over, and they got a camp there for tourists, and now, right now, just tourists every year there. I didn't get that. And I had, how many years I've been, go down fishing, go down copper, just go any place, get my fish. And then they say, how come we can't fish in Slino River? No, you can't fish in there. You can fish in just Copper River, that's the only place open. Then I started to think, well, Ensenada is a Copper River. Well, I start go down, I start say, I'm gonna put my wheel down Ensenada, that's a Copper River. They say, no, we cut it off halfway, they tell me. From Slino up couple mile, that's all open. You can't fish in up that way, they tell me. That's the time I start a fight with them. And I get the lawyer, and I tell my lawyer how we been living down Ensenada, how we fishing, how we raised by that fish there, and my dad and my mom working on the fish trap and all that. And we started a fight for 12 years we've been fighting.
12 years later, Katie John won her case, but the battle is far from over.
Blackfish.
The reason the feds are stepping in is because Alaska has not come up with a subsistence plan of its own that everyone can agree upon.
In 1997, subsistence was a major topic of discussion and media reports. Heartbeat Alaska will continue to keep you posted in 1998.
Really need to, stick with what we really want, and what we want to have is Alaska natives getting their preference as there should be, and then we also want to have Alaska natives governing their own subsistence rights.
Recently, the Anchorage Daily News reported that Senator Ted Stevens suggested that if the lawmakers cannot resolve the subsistence conflict, that perhaps we should vote them out. Dan O'Hara, a resident of King Salmon, Alaska, has his own opinion on why it's such a complex issue.
The people in Anchorage and the rail belt and Fairbanks, which is the nucleus of what controls the power in the state of Alaska, really hasn't a clue what goes on beyond McKenzie Point. You get across the channel McKenzie Point, they have no idea what goes on in rural Alaska. The power base is in this area. And if the Republican-led legislature wanted to get a caucus together and deal with the subsistence issue on Title VIII, which is in Elka, they could have done that. They refused to do that. However, just because the legislature refused to handle the subsistence issue does not mean that we're not going to handle the subsistence issue in the state of Alaska. I might make a statement here on federal management versus state management, and I think it's probably something that's going to travel throughout the state of Alaska because the governor and his administration is aware of it. The state of Alaska, in my estimation, and serving on an Ahtna Language advisory committee for 20 years, attending many Fish and Game Board, serving as a board of director on the Bristol Native Corporation, and having this very type experience as I'm knowledgeable about what has happened in some of these cases. The state of Alaska has a very arrogant attitude toward rural Alaska as far as I'm concerned. And of course, one of the things that causes this is that the state constitution says that the subsistence user, the sports user, and the commercial user are all the same, and that's understandable. That's what our Constitution reads. Title 8 of ANILCA says that rural Alaska gets the first right of refusal. And I think this is where the concern comes in. The state of Alaska has always managed from the top on down, and you've probably run across this probably in your travels, and the difference between state management and federal management. The federal government manages from the bottom on up, and in fact they've even worked in the co-management. And our federal Subsistence Council in Bristol Bay is a very effective tool. We work very closely with the state of Alaska. In fact, we work so well you hardly even recognize the fact that we're in place, working with the state regs. But I think that the federal people at this particular point in time is certainly more sensitive to the needs of rural Alaska than you would find in urban Alaska, the state of Alaska.
The subsistence battle rages on, with election year coming up. Katie John, however, has won her own fight. Today her concerns are not of her traditional fishing grounds, but rather for her grandchildren. They have no land. They have only laws that dictate where they can hunt and fish and how much they could take.
Thank you so much, Native American Rights Fund, for your help on that story. We travel north to Barrow, Alaska, where another burning issue is making headlines, whether or not Barrow will elect itself wet or dry.
I pray in Jesus' name.
Barrow, Alaska, the northernmost city in Alaska, is in the news again. In the past, they have voted themselves dry. It's now a controversial issue, a heated one, causing debate among the local citizens. However, statistics do not lie. And a study has recently been released stating that when Barrow goes wet, there's a twofold increase in emergency room visits. The hospital study required approximately 2.5 years to complete. It examined a 36-month period from January 1, 1994 through December 31, 1996, comparing visits to the hospital's ER and outpatient facilities during a 14 wet damp month and 22 dry months. Hospital officials said that the study was motivated in part by requirements of the Joint Commission on Accreditation of Healthcare Organizations. He said their standards require hospitals to regularly conduct quality improvement projects. During a routine 3-year visit, an accreditation team from the project recently surveyed the Samuel Simmons Memorial Hospital's compliance with its standards. After the hospital study comparing patient visits during wet, damp periods to dry periods was presented to the accreditation team, the hospital's board of directors approved public release of the study results. And public release is very important in this city of Barrow, Alaska. Local citizens, mostly Native people, are very concerned that alcohol be put under subordination to what they want and what they consider right for their youth, for their local citizens. Elders in particular once were interviewed, and most of them stated that they felt safer, that life was much more pleasant when there was no alcohol. Another advantage that villages experience when they vote themselves dry is a higher rate of incarceration of bootleggers, a problem that plagues rural Alaska. Many outsiders meaning those people that do not normally live in the village, transport liquor into the village and make a profit selling to locals. However, that's not to say that many locals do not also make a profit off their neighbors. With the banning of alcohol, life in general improves. Now the statistics in Barrow, Alaska prove that even more so. During a typical dry month, the emergency room will have about 230 emergency room visits. In a wet, damp month, they have almost 475. During dry months, emergency room visits have so many patients they number 1,200 outpatient visits per month. During wet, damp months, they have almost 2,200 visits. That's a twofold increase. Natives in Barrow, Alaska are campaigning to fight those that want to have alcohol in their village. I guess it goes back to the old days. We look back, sometimes sentimentally, at the days where we used to hunt and whale, where our relatives would walk the beaches searching for food. Life was uncomplicated. It was busy. Yet there were no drugs. As a matter of fact, Alaska Natives are one of the few cultures in the entire world that did not use natural hallucinogens or mind-altering drugs in their ceremonies in the past. And we're getting back to that these days. It's important to have a clear mind, especially when we're dealing with our youngsters, teaching them their old ways, which after all are the best ways, aren't they? I hope Barrow, Alaska follows suit with other places around the nation. It sets the example for all of us. We look to you at the top of the world, and we're watching. And we're going to watch on October 7th when you go to the polls. You've inspired us in the past. I'm sure you'll do it again.
Thank you so much, Barrow, Alaska, for your help on that story. Take a moment now to recognize someone that passed away recently. Mr. Hank Ostrosky was well known throughout the state for his help on Native issues. There will be a powwow in Anchorage, Alaska, Saturday at 1 o'clock at the Fairview Rec Center. All of Hank Ostrosky's friends will attend, I'm sure, and we'll see you there. Let's take a moment now for some Native music, and I'll be back right after that.
I would like to introduce to you Priscilla Coolidge, Laura Satterfield, and Rita Coolidge.
When they are
your beauty I behold. Snow-capped mountains, deep blue glaciers, winding rivers that run so cold. Hear the birds sing in the twilight of the summer's midnight sun. You are mine, great Alaska, and I'm proud to be your native son. Oh, the beauty of your summers, wildflowers bloom as snow recedes, warm winds blow in from the ocean, hills are red with fireweed, boats are painted, nets are mended, ready for the salmon run. You are mine, great Alaska, and I'm proud to be your native son. I have braved your coldest winters, I have fished your stormy seas, I have trapped your lakes, your rivers, like my father before me. Happy memories of my childhood follow me where'er I roam. You are mine, great Alaska, and you'll always be my home, sweet home. Yes, you'll always be my home, sweet home.
Thank you so much for joining us for Heartbeat Alaska, Native News and Native Entertainment. Hello, Canada. Nice to have you with us once again. Alaska, please continue to send video of happenings in your village and community. God bless you all. Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you again next week.
Manene nas ata ho kau ka khasias kana no ya ake